Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums with the Backbeats Meets the Spirit. This episode is sponsored by Club Tiki. Visit them at clubtikico.com to order rum-based cocktails in a can. Use promo code Drums and Rums to receive a discount and free shipping when you order 2 4-packs or more. They can the tropics so you don't have to.
Want to learn more about rum or expand your rum knowledge? Then become a rumlier. The Royal Rum Society has rumlier certification programs for all levels, from enthusiasts who wants to learn more about rum all the way to master rumlier certification, the highest degree of rum knowledge, discernment, and elucidation. Visit rumlier.com. That's RUMMELIER.com. Use promo code DRUMS2022 and receive 15% discount off your enrollment. This is Paul from Drums and Rums, where the Backbeats Meets the Spirits. We've got an awesome guest here today joining me. I know I'm on the East Coast here in Florida, and we're going to crack open. If you're watching on the video here on YouTube, or even if you're listening to it, come over and watch the video. You're going to see what I'm going to be drinking here. Like I said, we're taping this at 10 a.m. in the morning, so I think they say it's never too early to start drinking. It's not, you're not considered an alcoholic; you're considered a pirate. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest here to the podcast, Mitch Wilson. How you doing? Good morning.
Yeah, great, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing excellent here. So we've got a few folks here in the chat there. And we just want to get into it. So the little intro there we were just talking about, I said, so this podcast came about after I attended a Florida Rum Society virtual tasting with our guest, right, Mitch? And for those that are interested in this virtual tasting and trying the rum, we received a nice black box. So I know I showed it, and I'm like, a lot of people, I really do really love the presentation of stuff, right? This was really well thought through, inside the box. Here, I'll show for folks that didn't see it there. It comes in the sleeve. I'm like, this, I feels very like VIP on this. This is like felt lining.
You guys got the fancy box as well, so got the really good stuff in that one.
Yeah. But this tasting set was a blend of components from the finest Caribbean rums from Barbados, Guyana, and Jamaica, as well as the final blend itself, which I really love to learn more about. As we were talking there before this, we hit the start button, was the lining. Discussion with Will and John of the Rumcast, and going through some of the conversation about blending, right? Most people know or familiar with, and you mentioned Scotch. Scotch is the big blend, but there's blending in rum as well. And there's really, as you said, there's no rules in rum. There's you can do almost whatever you want, and which is kind of cool. So, So anyway, so again, it's so everybody welcome Mitch Wilson to the podcast. And just real quick, so they said this podcast is being taped and live streamed today, November 5th, and the audio podcast will be released on November 8th, this coming Tuesday. So if you're viewing this today, thanks for joining us. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, or any other podcast app coming up here on Tuesday, and don't forget to watch the video also. If you're listening to the audio first, come back and watch the video, and vice versa. But one quick housekeeping, we'll take a few pauses to answer some questions in the chat at about the 30 and 60-minute marks. And then also in the chat, please type the word question and then your actual questions. It just helps me kind of make sure if the chat's blowing up, hopefully, then hopefully I'll be able to catch a new question there. So let's start off this morning here with a little beverage, right? So Mitch, I said, I other than the small little mini bottles, I had to go and get some more. And I said, all right. And then I saw in a store, I saw this in one of our big box stores, actually, here in Florida.
Yes.
So as if you're watching on the video there, you can see it there. This is Black Tot. This is the rum. There we go. Look at that. Love it. We're going to go ahead and pour ourselves some here. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to actually, darn it, I thought I still had a sound effect for the pouring, but Anyway, all right, so there we go.
You're having it at a very traditional time now, because the sailors would have their tots at around 11 a.m. every morning on the ship. So you're historically accurate
Oh,
today.
I love
If
it.
anything, you're an overachiever.
Yeah, that's exactly how I planned it, right? Like, yeah, sure,
So,
sure. So yeah, so Mitch, like I said, when I was on the virtual tasting there on the FRS, um, one of the things that kind of caught my ear was the fact that it's bottled in Scotland. So it's like, okay, that's interesting because we did have had a another company on early last year that's distilled and are also located in Scotland. And I said, well, and my family is also and most of my listeners here have probably already know, and I've said it many times, is I'm a first generation American, so my folks had come over from Scotland actually. So
right.
I know there's no such thing as 100% Scottish because there's a whole Game of Thrones thing going on and many years ago, right? Everyone's all mixed up with everybody's. But anyway, so how did Black Tot come about? How when was the company started? I know there was a little bit as I dug, kind of doing the research and just to look into it was there's a tie into the whiskey exchange. Some of that historical aspect is I know you'll share here in a little bit about how some of the consignments and some of those things. But yeah, I said, where did it come about?
Okay, so it all began now about 12 years ago. 2010 is when we launched our first Black Tot. And the first Black Tot was actually called Black Tot Last Consignment. It's a bottling of old Navy rum flagons that had been preserved since 1970. And how it all started was our founder, Sukhinder Singh, was approached by an old sailor who had one of these flagons of Navy rum and had asked Sukhinder Singh, do you want to buy this flagon off me? And Sukhinder said, sure, okay. And then that sailor told a friend of his who had two of these flagons, and he came to Sukhinder and said, do you want to buy these off me? And he was like, okay. And then they had another friend who had 10 flagons. And then at this point, Sukhinder goes, okay, where is all this rum coming from? And, and at this point, he hadn't actually tried any of the rum, because these are 4.5 liter, 1 gallon jars of rum, and they're wax sealed. And, it's not like a bottle you can just crack open and easily get in. So he opens up one of these flagons, breaks off the wax seal, gets this cork out, and pours himself some rum. And he's just blown away. He's like, what is this rum? How, he's never tried anything like it before in the rum world. So he started researching what happened to the Navy rum after Black Tot Day, which was the day when they ended the Navy rum ration back in 1970. And he was like, well, these flagons must be coming from somewhere. So he called up the Ministry of Defence in England, as you do.
Yeah, did he have him on speed dial, or I mean,
just place some calls, and he's got a guy. And so he calls up the Ministry of Defence and he says, what happened to all your rum post 1970? And they say, oh, we got rid of it back in 1994. And he's like, where did it go? And they say, well, we've got a letter of disposal that we can send through to you and show you where it went, and this company bought it off us. So they fax him through this copy of where all this rum went to, and then he looked up that company that had bought all of this rum, and it's because it just said disposal of Navy rum. They were just getting rid of all of this stock they had in this warehouse in London. So he then chases up the next company that bought it, and they'd gone bust, and then found out who bought all their assets and things, and then chased that down and spent about 2 years tracking down where all this rum ended up. And half of it essentially ended up in America, half of it had ended up in France. And it was both with these sort of two booze companies that either weren't doing much with it, or trying to sell these whole flagons, and no one really knew what the rum was inside. And so Sukhinder ends up buying all of these flagons together that he tracked down, bring them all to our warehouses in Scotland. And then he was like, right, well, what are we going to do with it? So over the course of the next couple of years, they came up with the brand name, and Black Tot obviously tied into Black Tot Day, the last time this rum would have been drunk. And what they realized was a lot more research has been done since that first bottling, and we now know more about the rum that's inside. But initially, they were going purely off the flavor. And what they found was there were some flagons that were more Jamaican heavy, funkier, higher ester, and there were some flagons which were a bit richer, a bit more Guyanese heavy, a bit more Trinidad heavy. And they ended up doing a blend of these two vintages of flagons, if you like, and that became Black Tot Last Consignment. And for 10 years, that was the only bottling we had. There's still a few bottles kicking around. I think I've got one. There's the tail end of one here. So this is what the original Black Tot looks like. And this one will go for typically around €1,000 a bottle, something like that. So, or $1,000 roughly. So it's not necessarily your everyday rum, but it's certainly for a special occasion. For anyone who's watching on the video, this is a tot. This is the little half gill cup that comes with it. So that would have been, about 2.5 ounces over in America, or 72 mils over here. And that was half a gill of rum. That was your daily rum ration. So for 10 years, we just had this rum. And the question became, what are we going to do when it all runs out? Which in the next few months, it's very likely that we'll all be gone. And so we started creating our own blends and putting some stuff together ourselves. And that became, the first one was the rum you've got there, which is Black Tot Finest Caribbean. So we started with this, and then we also started doing a yearly release, which we call our Master Blenders Reserve, and that comes out every year on Black Tot Day. And that's just the most ridiculous blend of crazy casks that our blender, Oliver Chilton, can find every year. And every year, basically, we just try and make the most ridiculous rum blend that we can, and make this just out there crazy. Like, people look at the ingredient list, they're like, how the hell, where are you getting these casks from? Why are you blending these? What are you doing? And it just makes these absolutely delicious rum blends. So, yeah.
Nice. So, so what year did you say he started, the old sailor had approached him?
So this would have, I believe it was around 2007, 2008.
Okay.
And then we launched Last Consignment, we launched in 2010. And then, for about 9-10 years, that was pretty much the only one we had. We did a very small release of a 40-year-old Guyanese rum, which also came under the Black Tot name, but although I don't think any of that made it to the States, but we made 300 bottles of it, and that, again, just a crazy rare run. But for 10 years, those were all we had, and now we've started bringing out some more interesting modern takes on a Navy blend.
What really was struck me was, again, and I'm still have so much to learn, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the great stuff that folks that want to learn more is on the website, on your website. And and if it wasn't for things, again, shout out to the Florida Rum Society putting together the virtual happy hours, the virtual tastings, the rum cast, and all the the different outlets there to spread the word, because, to be honest, I would almost say that the only thing I would have assumed is anything of the referenced high or whatever is like pussers, right? And we're talking about Black Tot today, but again, I think I'm going to make a point here. But so there's that there's a little bit more, and I love the history. And I think I've always say that I'm like a closet history person. I just love listening to somebody talk about the history, and history is important, right? So you can learn a lot. Yeah, as kids, right? We hated taking and learning it, but it's could tell a lot about things have worked and didn't work, and so forth. And again, like I said, that the reference to the word black, the word tot is synonymous with the Navy, British Navy, obviously Black Tot Day, as you mentioned. And are you going to do another 24-hour Black Tot Day next year? Do I need to get my passport and come over and be part of that?
We've had quite a few people ask about this. I think Dawn and I are. We might do it one day. Who knows? We might come back to it. But, we for anyone who didn't see it, went over lockdown for the 50th anniversary of Black Tot Day, which was in 2020. We were meant to be doing this world tour and going around to all these cities and throwing a sort of global party. And then obviously we couldn't go anywhere. So Dawn Davies from the Whiskey Exchange, and who's a massive rum lover and has really sort of made sure that Whiskey Exchange has this incredible rum offering on their site. Her and I got together and we were like, what's something we can do that still brings the world of rum together and do something really fun, but, stands out, because there was, hundreds of online tastings happening all over the place. And
Right.
we're like, what if we just stayed up for 24 hours and just spoke to everyone in rum that we know continuously? And so it's all up on our YouTube channel still. You can go back and, there's some pretty amazing interviews, some pretty incredible people on the lineup, and you can watch Dawn and I struggling to stay up for 24 hours and keep the energy levels at peak the whole time.
That's got to be really tough. I mean, consider you're obviously drinking, and and then that usually puts you to sleep. So yeah, it's definitely that's crazy. Yeah, the crazy things we did during the lockdown, right? To keep ourselves sane.
I think we went through about 8 bottles of champagne, 2 or 3 bottles of rum, mainly in daiquiris. It was quite an impressive
Nice.
outgoing. So
Black Tot is more than just, as you said, right? It's just the one bottle that I had, or the consignment that you have. And everyone always talks about the consignment, which we'll talk a little bit more about that product for those that aren't kind of some of that process. But so you have yearly releases, and did that start with 2020, or is there 19?
Yeah, so it started with the first one was actually called the 50th anniversary, which we released in 2020, and that was that was kind of the beginning of this idea of like, how crazy can we get it? So that one had 23-year-old Coroni, 42-year-old Port Morant, some of the Last Consignment in it, Foursquare, Hampton, all this Demerara Distillers rum going in there. It was in itself, it was an insane blend, and that began what would then become Master Blenders Reserve from 2021 onwards. So we've just released the 2022, which will hopefully be making it over to the States soon. And so we've obviously the last couple of years have slowed down a little bit about getting our rum out and around the world, but it's starting to catch up a bit now. So
Nice.
Hopefully in the States very soon.
I know it, and it's I love the fact that this might be my first Europe. Okay, I'm going to say it in a way it's going to come out wrong, but I think you know what I mean. Is my first European bottle.
Okay, right.
Right. Did I come across right saying it? I think you know what I mean, right?
In terms of being bottled in Europe, or
or originated, or I mean, I know the rums here in different places, but again, the final product that actually, basically getting this, this right is I don't think, because again there was another, again we're talking Black Tot today, but there was another guest that was on that from Scotland, and until I can convince one of my relatives to bring one back. It's challenging. I mean, it's always interesting to talk to everybody, and talk to people around the world is cool, because it's like, oh man, you've got that, and oh, I don't have that, or here us in the States can't get Havana Club, but we get another version of it, and so yeah. Well, you know what? Cheers to my first European origination point.
Cheers. Well, it's I think it's always tricky. I mean, one of the things that I notice when I come to the States is a lot of bottlings which we can't get over here yet, you know. So I think probably the last couple of trips I did, I pretty much just filled my bag with bottles of Holmes Key from Eric Kay, because he has some incredible bottlings out in the States. And so I've got like, I think I bought like 12 different ones back on the last one, you know, because we can't get it over in Europe. And similarly, you know, there's sometimes brands over here that either don't make it in the States or don't get out there. You know, the States is in a lot of ways incredibly complex to the rest of the world, and how every state has different rules. And we're very lucky there. We have our importer Impex, who work with all these different distributors across the country and are very good at sort of getting the word out there and making sure people can get some rum. So yeah, no, it's nice, but it's all, you just have to find the right people to, you know, the logistics side of rum can be quite tricky sometimes, you know. And, at the end of the day, we just want to have it in the shop and be able to buy it and drink it, you know.
Right.
So
It's the modern version of rum smuggling, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Always pack an extra bag just in case.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like.
Yeah. I've heard some stories about people going into the Caribbean and they realize, oh shit, I have hit my limit, you know. But then again, I think like the duty tax or whatever it is to bring it in is not that much, but you know,
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah. So yeah, so I think it's kind of, so the yearly releases, and then so yeah, there's thanks for everybody for tuning in here. We're gonna get here right in a few minutes. We'll take a little quick pause. So if you got any questions for Mitch or myself, I know I'm sure it's really all the questions for Mitch. So just hang tight. We'll take a break here in just in a few minutes, right at 30 minutes there, about, and then we'll go right into it. So hit me up and just let me know. So yeah, Mitch, talk about with those yearly releases, and as you mentioned, the blending of the original. I guess a few questions is talk about that blending process, and with the blending of the original Flagons, at what point will all that Flagons be gone, or from its original form?
It's a good question. We're not entirely sure is the honest answer. So Sekinder bought a lot of Flagons, and when you get these Flagons, it's not like when you buy booze today. You know, this booze some of it's from the 1950s, some of it's from 1970s, and these were military issue provisions. You know, these were never designed to be sold or doing what we're doing to them. So these military provisions were sealed in wooden boxes, nailed shut, wrapped with tin metal around the outside to hold them together. So there's no like cardboard or plastic or anything. This inside is full of sawdust to stop them knocking around each other. Like, these are designed to be thrown on warships and transported around the world, you know. So you have to crowbar these things open, and then half the time, you know, some of the Flagons are broken when you get them inside, or the seal isn't tight and all the rums come through and it's no good. So we, when I joined Black Tot at the start of 2020, I was doing a lot of research into, you know, what this liquid actually was and how to denote all the different demarcations on each of these boxes, so you could tell, okay, this has come from this base, this has gone here on this date, this was sealed and packed on this day, and got a fairly good, you know, overview now of, like, I'll sometimes get people who've found a flagon on one of these auctions, or they've got a box and they want to know more about it, or they've been told one thing by the seller, and I'm like, just send me the pictures, and I can usually now fairly accurately date and tell someone where it's come from. So we started doing this, and then we've got a lot of these boxes still there, and we spent a day or two up there looking at it, and I was writing down all these codes, working out what they all meant. And then we went back to the warehouse and we're like, can you just crowbar open all of those other boxes and note down the code on this side of the box and the one on the top, and then underneath work out what's the number on the wax seal and the naval base it came from, and can you just note all that down for every single flagon? And they were like, no, of course, no, absolutely not. Why would you even ask us that? We are not even going to touch these boxes. And we were like, right. So I was talking to our blender, our master blender, Mr. Oliver Chilton, and he was like, yeah, basically when we've got our own warehouse and we've got our own space, I think me and him are just going to go up there and spend a couple of weeks crowbarring open these boxes, seeing which flagons have survived, working out the dates and the vintages of them all, and seeing what we've actually got left. So when will it run out? On the actual flagons, yeah, it's very hard to say. On Last Consignment, we think probably in the next few months, we've got, I think it's about 300, 400 bottles left now in the world out of 3,000 that we originally bottled. So it's just one of those things. In the last couple of years, I think we've perhaps done a good job of now getting the name out there and Black Tot out there, and having blends like our Finest Caribbean and Master Blenders Reserve has sort of put Last Consignment now on people's radar, whereas before it was, there's not that many people who are spending $1,000 on a bottle of rum and, just walking into a shop and asking for it. But now that's starting to happen. So it's, it will be gone soon, unfortunately. And what's interesting about Last Consignment is we don't have the same vintages necessarily to recreate that exact blend again. So if we do something more with the flagons, I don't think it would be another Last Consignment, but yeah, we won't fully know until we crowbar open all these boxes. So
so if you haven't thought of this, if you're going to go spend a few weeks cracking open all those boxes, you've got to do a full blown video, because the content for that, and it's almost like I'm thinking, like here in the U.S. there's the show Storage Wars on Discovery Channel or TL, whichever it is. It's like they buy the locker and they have no idea really what could be in it, and it's like, yeah. So there you go. There's a new YouTube. There's a new YouTube.
That's, but I didn't know that was an actual thing that happened. I was watching this. I don't know if there's some new like horror series on Netflix with Guillermo del Toro's sort of put together. And in the first episode, I think they bid for this auction locker and find this haunted, storage locker somewhere. And I was like, that can't really happen, does it? But yeah, okay. America's wild.
Yes. Thank you. And again, considering I'm in Florida, we have Florida Man too, which I'm sure you heard of, right?
I haven't heard of Florida Man, no.
Oh my God, yeah. I would tell you to come hang out on Thursday nights when I do my happy hour show, where it's just a fun hangout, and I don't get a chance to drum as much anymore, so I still need the itch to perform. And there we do a Florida Man segment. Almost everybody in this country does, because there's always the story behind it, Mitch, is there's always the craziest shit stories that people hear in the news, and then they hear it elsewhere in the country, and it's like, Florida man today jumped off, or Florida man naked wrestled an alligator. I mean, so just Google Florida man, and then some of them are a little kind of gruesome because they're actually like Florida man murdered this. But we've had stories of Florida man who's running around Miami naked with a cowboy hat and a machete, and so yeah, there's some crazy. But yeah, so that's that. You got to think about that. I think that'd be a great. The rum community would be all over something like this, right? Where just kind of watching, and the anticipation's like, oh, we open it up and it's a broken bottle or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we should. Okay, well, all right. Well, so we need a Florida news crew. Is that what? or like
you could use somebody,
Florida reality TV crew to come over.
Yeah. No, you want it to be. You want it to be good. You don't want to have somebody come from the States, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, you just hire somebody. I mean, heck, hire a crew there in the UK.
I'm just imagining, Ollie Ollie and I in this like freezing cold Scottish warehouse in the middle of nowhere, just crowbarring open boxes and like very excited American film crew going around making it really exciting, like quick zoom
Yeah.
in and out, and
Wait a minute, it didn't seem as cool as it was when we were there.
it's going to need a lot more sound effects, and,
Right? Yeah. We'll
some
throw
CGI.
we'll throw James Cameron in it, and then it'll be we'll really step it up a notch there. So all right. So I know I promised that I said we were gonna take a little pause here and kind of catch up here in the chats, and so we did have a question here. Mike wants to know what's next up in the States. Let me be sure I read this right. What's next up for the States from Black Tot?
Ooh, good question. Well, the next thing that will be coming for you guys, as soon as it lands, will be our Master Blenders Reserve 2022, which is the sort of third edition of our yearly release, coming on from 50th anniversary, Master Blenders 21, which just landed in the States a few months back, and now the 2022 should be following on, hopefully very soon. 2022 is the most complex rum blend we've ever done. It has around 20 different components in it. There's about 4 different casks of Demerara distillers in there. There's Long Pond, Clarendon, New Yarmouth, Foursquare, Mount Gay for the first time. There is some Trinidad distillers. There's some Coroni from 1997 in there. There's some of the Flagons also in there. And there's also, and this is the part that's kind of cool, each year we take some of last year's rum, put it into sherry casks for 9 months, and then add that into the new release. So it's also got some of the 2021 in there as well. It's ridiculous. It's insane. So and every year we have a slightly different flavor profile on it. So this will be different to the last 2 years if you've been following along with the series. And yeah, it's funny. Everyone has a different favorite. For me, it's usually between this and the 50th are kind of my 2 favorites, I think. But 2021 when I want a bit more funk and fruit and Jamaica in there. So yeah, it really depends what your flavor profile is. But if you liked 50th anniversary, then this for me is like a richer, more complex 50th anniversary.
Right.
So
okay. All right. So hopefully that answers the question there, Mike. So it looks like we're all caught up there. So speaking of the one of the things you mentioned on the virtual tasting there, in the Florida Rum Society happy hour virtual session, was transparency.
yeah,
And I know that's really big, and it's getting a lot more known, I guess, outside of the rum enthusiasts, because most people want to know is what's in it. I mean, maybe that's a lot of things that we've turned into, and other things too is like, well, what's actually going in that hot dog, and
maybe you don't want to know that.
well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't. That's true. Yeah, you ruin the whole having experience of a hot dog, right? Yeah, and okay. So let me jump back here. So I got something. The Almighty 8 HUD. Hey, Grant here. Back in 2021, you did a tour around the UK for the 50th anniversary? Would you do something similar again? So 50 was 2 years ago, though, right?
50 was the 2020. 2021 was our first time sort of actually being able to travel a little bit, but we were kind of restricted to the UK because we still couldn't do a lot of international travel at that time. Last year, wait, what year is it? No, this year.
Yeah, I know. COVID threw the whole. Yeah, everyone just skipped over COVID. Yeah.
So this year we did a little bit more travel, started to get into Europe. So I'm actually based in Amsterdam, which I'm where I'm calling from today, and so we did some events over here as well, and starting to do a little bit more in Europe. And then next year we're going to hopefully, finally, hopefully, fingers crossed, actually do a bit more of a global tour for Black Tot Month. So
Okay. All So I think so. I'll make sure I'll ask for clarification if I ask that question right.
So if you wanna come and see us, or if you want us to come and see you, rather, let us know. Keep us posted, and we'll try and make sure that we get to your city and bring you some rum. So if not in July, then certainly throughout the year. So.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So so yeah, the transparency I thought was really interesting. As we were saying, was how we've become very wanting to know what goes into things, and especially in this very, and I don't know, Mitch, I'm going to step outside the rum world just for a little bit and say, I mean, is there a similar, desire for other spirits, people that are enthusiasts of other spirits, to kind of have that same transparency that rum is?
I think so. I think I think in general it's a trend that goes across everything with food and drink, and even maybe by extent, I think anyone who's passionate about something wants to know all the details. If you're into your tech, if you're into your music, you want to know maybe not just what the average person knows, but you want to know who produced it, who engineered it, who was the behind the scenes.
Right.
You might have many more questions, and you're on the album looking for that information when you get it. If you're into your tech and you're looking up all the details for something new that you're buying, and it says it's got this, then this, and these processes, and you're like, cool, okay, you want to know that information. Right. You might not have any idea what it actually means, but you're like, oh yeah, okay, sounds good. I'm glad there's some transparency there.
Right.
And I think rum was so plagued for so long with this lack of transparency, or it was, and this is where I think rum really set itself apart, maybe slightly from other spirits, was that there was so much misinformation, and there was so little transparency, and even though you had, kind of to feedback on something you mentioned at the start, like. There is this idea that rum has no rules, and it can be seen that way for a certain lens, like because there are so many different things happening in the rum world, and there's so many companies that release things under a rum label that don't necessarily always qualify. And it's not for a lack of rules, it's more for a lack of people observing the rules and endorsing them. So, Jamaica has rules. Martinique has some of the strictest rum rules in the world, or for any spirit, Barbados is putting in rules. There's lots of different places that have, Venezuela has rules, Guyana has a GI. There's all these different places which have pretty strict either local traditions or customs or some kind of rule in place. But it's one thing for you to have them, and it's another thing for Europe or America to actually go, okay, we respect your rules and we'll enforce those rules to make sure no one copies it or right. does something else with it. And rum's kind of unique because you look at something like whiskey, and okay, you've got several whiskey producing countries, but a lot of it's centralized around maybe 3 or 4 main whiskey producing nations, and more are coming up. But with rum, you've got almost 70 different places making rum that I know of, and it's like each one of those has a different set of rules. So it's very easy from the outside to just go, screw learning 70 different types of rules. Let's just say rum has no rules. Like, right. No, they've got rules. Yeah. We just don't necessarily pay attention to them, right. And so I think because of that, and because of so many companies, like the whole sugar thing, for years people were saying this tastes really sweet. Did you add some sugar to it? And for some reason, the rum world, for the most part, went no, definitely no sugar in it. And because they lied about it, it kind of turned it into this big thing where it was, you could have very easily, if you'd gone back 10, 20 years ago, and all these rum companies went, yeah, we've always added sugar, so this is a thing we do here. Everyone would have gone, oh, cool, okay, like fine, if that's what you guys do, and that's
right. like
done, then fine. But when you have this kind of like dubious nature about it, it's turned something which could have been treated in some places as traditional custom, has turned it into marketing and all this other kind of stuff. So I think the rum world was crying out for it for years, and now there are a lot more companies who are being transparent. They're putting all this information on the label, and you can pick up a bottle of rum and you actually you can see which country it's from, you can see what's in it, you can see if it's had sugar or not, and this is great. I think this is how the rum world steps up. This is how we make it more interesting and engaging for each other. It's like, I'm hoping we're past the days of just pirates and sea monsters, and we actually go, cool, what's in this bottle, what am I actually buying here? And then you find out.
And it's not necessarily a knock, and I think and I think that's one of the toughest things is to kind of get into folks that aren't maybe an enthusiast, and they're interested in it's a rum. It's been very conditioned, is maybe like kind of what you're describing there. People become conditioned as, here's what it is, and but we won't tell you what it is, but this is it. And I think that some of it is, some people like still have that, like you said, that myth of, or it's like, oh, it's all rum is sweet, or all rum is bad for diabetics, or it's like, well, it isn't, as long as there's not something added afterwards. It's all distilled out and so forth. So, and then again, those who are not, it's kind of, it's like that, having that conversation and without kind of boring the person, or the person getting annoyed with you trying to set them straight a little bit or educate them is, I don't know. So, hey, we all like to go on the cruise ship and Carnival cruise ship. Oh, there goes that sponsor. And, and have our, massive pina coladas and, pain in the asses and all that. But sometimes people don't. Yeah, I don't know. Which is fine. Hey, there's times that people have different. Are really nice, put together, and then some will be like, hey, I don't know. So, but I think that's a good point you made.
I think there's a time with it as well where, if we look at the whiskey world as an example, right? Whiskey always had transparency more through regulation, right? So Scotch whiskey, for example, has a very strict set of rules, and if it says Scotch whiskey or Scotch single malt or blended malt or blend or whatever it is, you've got a fairly good idea of what's working because you've got this regulation around it. Where rum didn't necessarily have those regulations enforced, it left a little bit more leeway for people to go either way. And so one example for us that came up, which was kind of interesting, when we did the back labels on our Master Blended Reserve and 50th anniversary, we wanted to put all the blend percentages and each component and the age of each component and all this kind of stuff. And at first, we weren't actually sure if we could do that or not, because in whiskey, you're not allowed to put all that information on the label. You're not allowed to say different age ranges. You're only allowed to put what the youngest whiskey is in that blend, because you could use that information and make it misleading if you wanted to. But in the rum world, there is nothing to say you can't do that. So we could actually be more transparent in that particular regard. So kind of the freedoms we have in rum, on one hand, allow you to be the most transparent spirit category there is, because there's nothing stopping you from being that. On the other hand, it means you can get away with a lot of stuff and it really just depends on your brand and your ethos and where you're coming from as a company and what you're wanting to put in the bottle, and obviously we know, at the end of the day, I think for most of us, we imagine and dream that every person making rum out there is like some craft distiller bent over a barrel, sipping it every day, waiting for the rum to be ready. And it's like, for a lot of rum companies, it's just, it's a product. It's something they're pumping out. It's something they're making a lot of, and so it really, really comes down to each individual brand and company and who's putting the liquid in the bottle on their quality and that transparency that comes through. And, I think as people learn more about it, they become more passionate about, they go, oh, I didn't know to ask for that. I didn't know I could ask for that, you know.
Right.
So maybe, you know, when you get that cocktail at that random bar, you might say, hey, what is your house rum here? Oh, it's that. Actually, I really like that one up there. I'll pay the extra dollar. Can I have it with that rum instead? You know, and you immediately transform your cocktail, because if you use better ingredients, you'll get a better drink. And you know, a lot of the time, you know, okay, it might cost $1 or $2 more, but hey, you're getting a better liquid. So.
Right. Yeah. And I had something, you know, again, part of the homework that I did in was, you know, that transparency aspect is, you know, you said on, I may see if I get this correct. You said in a Zucker and Zist interview, is that right?
Oh yes, yeah,
Okay.
Zucker and Zest, yeah, over in Germany, yeah.
And something was interesting, and I think it's overlooked, but with your cocktail background, it makes sense. And you said, my goal is for a bartender to be able to pick up a bottle and explain to his guests exactly what they're drinking. And you know, I think it's again educational. I mean, anybody can sling drinks, but if they can be add that little extra into their, I guess that separates people that are like craft or mixologists, you know, an actual, they know their skills rather than somebody working at you know, like I said, I don't think you have a TGI Fridays in the, you know, in the UK, but, or in, you know, in Amsterdam.
We've definitely got some
Okay.
TGI Fridays.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, I know some of those bartenders aren't bad either. I don't want to knock them, right? But, you know, but I think that, I mean, do you think, you know, with what that statement that you made it came from also your, which we haven't got to yet, but your bartending and mixology and cocktail making previously?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're working on a bar, you know, you might have, even on a small bar, you might have anywhere from 50 to 100 bottles behind you. You know, in a bigger bar, it might be 200 bottles, 300 bottles. Some places have 500-600 bottles, you know, and you're asking a lot of every bartender there to know the minutiae and the detail for each of those bottles, you know, like, and you know, with credit where it's due, there's a lot of bartenders out there who absolutely have all of the information, all the details, and they have just these mimetic memories, which are amazing. But, you know, you might have a new bottle that's come in, you know, your bar manager's bought it, you haven't tried it before, it's popped up on the shelf, someone's asked for it, and you're like, what the hell is this, you know? And most of the time, what I found was, until, you know, we'd had the brand ambassador come in, or someone had come and done a training and told us all about it, you wouldn't really know what was in that bottle. You know, you wouldn't know how long it had been aged, you didn't know how it had been made, you didn't know what the fermentation time was, what was in the blend, what was going on. And, you know, the brands I used to love were the ones when they would come and do these trainings and they would tell you everything. You know, there was no secrets, there was no bullshit. It was just like, no, here's exactly what we do. Here's the stuff I'm not meant to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because we want you to learn and understand it. And, you know, that's really the role of the ambassador. But, you know, especially when you know, we're a small brand still, we're still starting out, and you know, the brand ambassador team for Black Tot is me. That's it right now, you know, and I can't be at every single bar training everywhere else. So I'm like, if someone looks us up on the website, I want them to have all the information there. You know, so everything, if you go on blacktot.com and how rum is made and all the details on our blends, like we've written everything there so that someone, if they're interested, can actually find out. You know, you're not going to get a paragraph of marketing bullshit that tells you nothing about the rum. It's like, no, we'll actually tell you what's in the blend and what's in it and all that information. Now, we've got less space on the label to do that, but as much information as we can give you, we're going to do it. And, you know, like we've got our new boxes here, and we've started putting the recipes on Finest Caribbean here on the box as well. And hopefully one day that will get onto the label for Finest Caribbean too, you know, and I really want it to be across the board. You can pick up any bottle from us and you know instantly what's in there. And I think the rum world has got, in general, a lot better with that over the last few years. And there's some companies like the Veliers and the Foursquares and the Holmes Keys, and you know, people who have been super transparent with their labelings, which is great. And hopefully that it carries on and more of that happens. So
Yeah, I think that's I, you know, and those things to be very forward about it, right? Is it can be very scary, I guess, in the sense that, you know, you're putting yourself out, things, people or brands or whatever, or going at it rather than waiting back or holding back. Um, you know, hey, just put it out there, and
Yeah.
because as you know, my day gig, just say that, right, is, you know, there's something said is, if you don't if you don't tell the story, somebody else is going to tell it for you.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
yeah,
What's your day gig?
I, I can't get into it. I'll tell you offline, but it's not
Now I'm really
it's
intrigued.
not this. Okay, I'll tell you that. You know, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite there yet, but yeah. But I think, you know, like you said, the website. It's just man, there's a lot of great information. If you're a person that you're listening to this podcast, and you know, and maybe you don't know a whole lot about rum yet. On the Black Tot website, they talk about how it's made, as Mitch said, their products, you know, where they came from, what their tasting notes are. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, in a glass house, it is all out there, and which is great. And like I said, maybe some people don't know what certain rums from the different islands taste like. Yeah, as like you said, a Jamaican rum is much different than a Barbadian rum, um, and maybe some people want to be curious about. Oh, okay, if I'm going to try something, I like these things, and it helps me, and so forth. But if you don't have rum friends, or you know, you know, everyone always has the rum guy, you know, that you know. But if you don't have one of them, you know, things like this, and the website is great to kind of add in there. So real quick,
I like the idea that everyone has a rum guy.
yeah,
I feel like everyone should have a rum
yeah,
guy.
I know. Maybe that's a shirt I have to put together for next weekend. Is the Miami Rum Renaissance Festival here?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
and maybe that's what I got to just make a shirt that says rum guy and have arrows pointing in both ways, right? Because everyone's going to be a rum guy, right? All right, don't want anybody steal my idea. All right, I know this is a live stream, and yeah, so don't steal my idea. If we show up together with the same damn shirt, I'm going to know you were listening. But so thank you for stealing the idea. So actually, I hopefully don't say his name wrong, but Sam Philemus, I am beverages. The Black Tot MBR 2022 is scheduled to arrive in the U.S. in February 2023.
Amazing. Okay,
Yes.
so Sam is from Impex Beverages, who
Okay.
is our importer here in the States. So yeah, so you've heard it from the horse's mouth there.
There you go.
He's the big cheese. So
All
so
right.
yeah, February 2023, did it say?
Yeah, February 2023. Yep.
All right, exciting. So yeah, okay. You've this is the first I've heard
What
a
do we
date.
wait?
So
Did we just have breaking news on the
this is breaking
This is
news. You've heard it
awesome.
here first on
Yes,
Drums and Rum.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. We'll be on CNN later. This clip.
That's it.
Okay, I know we said it right about at the top of the hour there, so I think it might be just a good chance. I think here, just let me read a couple things here. I went to an event and planned for another brand. I'll just say that, and they're dispersed by identity drink brands are trying to increase people's awareness of rums and difference of rum. Have you ever worked or heard of them? Okay, let me read the whole thing again. I'm sorry. So the Almighty HUD said, I went to an event for Plantation Rum, and they're dispersed by identity drink brands are trying to increase people's awareness of rum and differences of rum. Have you ever worked or heard of them?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the Identity Drinks guys are in the UK. And yeah, they're a fantastic team. They're a really, really cool team of people that they've got there. Very, very passionate about all of their booze and all of their booze portfolio. And yeah, they distribute Plantation Rum over in the UK. So I used to work for Plantation Rum back in Asia Pacific. So I was with them for 3 years, and yeah, just a really lovely group of people. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the places where, for me, really talking about what's in your rum, because obviously they do add sugar to a lot of their rums. And, one of the things I used to do in all the master classes when we used to teach it in Australia or Asia was, we would tell people this is the sugar that's in there. And I'd get a little bottle of the actual sugar syrup as well that we would add so people could try it as well. And, as I say, whether sugar's your thing or not your thing, I think it's each to their own. And at the end of the day, sometimes you fancy something sweet, sometimes you fancy something dry. The main thing for me is you've just got to know whether it's in there or not and be transparent about it, and so one of the things that I really like that they've done is they've started putting the grams of sugar per liter on I think pretty much all of their bottlings, but certainly all the vintages and single casts now all have that information, which is great. That's how it should be. If you're going to do it, then own it and be transparent, and then people can make their own choice from there. So
right, some of that does go a long way. But I know it's the industry is kind of different parts of it is, I'm not saying forcing it, but again, it's making more awareness to it, and like you said, and I think that is interesting is with with some of that, just know what's in it, because you're probably going to. I think it's well, I would think that it's not whether it's intentionally or just happens that way, but let's say if there was a rum that you tried. And you do maybe it does say it does have it doesn't say it, but it has sugar added or things added afterwards, and it puts you off maybe. And then again, that kind of then hurts the whole community as a whole, because again, if you don't like it, if you didn't like that, and it puts you off, then it actually hurts everybody, So, which is again, it's fine. Some of the big companies here in the states here that are in a lot of the tiki bars here in Florida. Well, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Not the tiki bars, not the actual tiki bars, but some of the beach water area bars. That's a lot of what they have. And I was at a place and I was pleasantly surprised that I never would have thought of they would be a restaurant here in I live here in Palm Beach County. It's parts of South Florida, so they had plantation. I forget what they call it. It's like they're clear. The light silver,
yeah,
and I was like, wow, that's great, and something different other than the B, the big B, and so it's I don't know, it's so forth. So let me see here. I think no, that's all right. I'm sorry, just catching up in the chat there. So, so we talked about the rums. We talked about and then this is the blending, and again it is a skilled thing, as you mentioned. Your master blender goes through or you guys have your set forth by the owner. Here's what we're going to do this year. Here's this style and so forth, which is really cool. So, so as you mentioned there, I think it's again I just love the fact that it's so. Is this possibly what you guys have with the in the Flagons? Is it possibly the oldest known rum that's still, I guess, available?
Good question. In terms of a blend, I would say quite possibly, because the way they blended the rum, they just continuously topped up these vats from the early 1800s till 1970. So they just had this perpetual blend. So in terms of, is it the oldest rum blend? I would say, I think that would be a tough one to beat, to be honest. I don't know of anyone who's got anything older than that. In terms of when it was bottled and stuff like that, I know there are a handful of very historic rum bottlings out there, like the Harewood House rum and some others that have really come from either early 1900s or even 1800s in some cases. There's some real rare examples out there. But yeah, in terms of this is what's so unusual about the Navy blend. There's nothing really that spans that time period of being continuously topped up for 160 years. So yeah, it's very hard to put an age on it, and it's very hard to sort of say, is there something older than there? Because if it was just 1970 rum, then you'd be like, no, there's definitely older out there. But how much of that 1800s
Right.
feeds into the perpetual blend? It's really hard to say, So
All right, we have another TV show that we have to work on. It's called Rum CSI. We got to do some spectrometers. I don't know, whatever it is, and yeah. So is it possible to think that some of that somewhere along the line has a small trace of Admiral Nelson's DNA? Means.
Well, it depends what version of that story you take. So there's a lot of people that say he was in brandy. So that would really ruin it. But yeah. But,
Oh, that's funny. So what's a typical day in the life of a global rum ambassador? Because that really sounds like a cool job.
It's a pretty cool job title, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, definitely was from the second I started in the bar industry. My mentor was a guy called Jim Wrigley, who used to be the global ambassador for Santa Teresa rum back in the day, and had won best brand ambassador in the world at Tales of the Cocktail and all this kind of stuff. And he used to tell me stories about flying between New York and London and just doing laybacks with people and pouring out drinks and drinking daiquiris and getting back on a plane. I was like, that sounds incredible. Like, how do I I remember him telling me this. I think I'd been in the job maybe 3 weeks in my entire bar career at the time, and even then I thought, wow, that sounds like a dream job, but I would never get there. I'll never know enough about rum, or I'd never know enough about anything in booze to be able to do something like that. But I was like, if I was here for long enough, that's what I'd love to do. So yeah, so it's pretty fun now to be able to do it. It's weird, the last couple of years I think has kind of really redefined what the role is, because before that, back in my time when I was working with Maison Ferrand, I was my last year, I didn't even rent an apartment my last year. I was traveling 265 days out of a year, and I just worked out what would 100 nights me paying for hotels cost versus renting my apartment for the year. And I worked out I'd save like $10,000 if I didn't have the apartment and I just stayed in hotels. And that's what I did. So
wow.
I put all my stuff into a storage locker, and I just lived out of a suitcase for that entire year. And that wasn't even a global role. That was just Asia Pacific. That was 14 countries. And that was what the life of a brand ambassador was like. COVID completely sort of sideswiped that whole idea, and obviously the last 2 years, it's interesting. We've just been doing numbers of like how many masterclasses we do in a year and all this kind of stuff, and the number of masterclasses is about the same. I typically would be anywhere between 100 to 150 masterclasses a year that we do, or trainings or talks or tastings, whatever it was. And the number has stayed about the same, but now it might be something like this. It might be an online session with someone. It might be a virtual tasting at 3 a.m. with Florida Rum Society. It might be training with Taiwan at 7 a.m. in the morning. And then now, as the world starts to open up, it's kind of this hybrid model where every event or every request we have for something now that comes through, I have to ask, I'm like, is this in real life or is this virtual? And you can flip a coin sometimes, like, oh no, in real life, of course. And you're like, right. Okay, great. Now I've got to work out how to get there and travel and do all that. And then sometimes like, no, it's virtual. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to be in Germany that day, but I can just come home early, be in the hotel room, do the training session, go back out to the bars afterwards. It's a really, the model's changed somewhat. And it's only really in the last 2-3 months, I'd say, where we're sort of almost back up to full speed again. Okay. So next year is going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of travel next year, and a lot of US travel next year as well, hopefully. So
very cool. Yeah. So and there's a it's funny because I had Ian was on last year, and was telling somebody this the other night was, so it was the a rum, global rum ambassador, right? And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I said, there's actually is a global drum ambassador too. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and I'm like, well, of course, drums and rums. Why not? Why would I not have a global or global ambassador for both of these things? And excuse me, Don Famolaro is, and he's, I think he's like in his 70s, and I mean, this guy's got to talk about energy. And I mean, he is so upbeat, and he's, goes way back to the 40s and 50s in New York with the big bands and all these things, and people, this person, that person. But he was like some of the first ways of approaching teaching, like with VCR tapes and certain things, and before it's when Skype just first came out, and all these things, and so he does a lot of that, like you said, like he'll have a Zoom session with somebody, and maybe they send their tapes. So, and I told him that recently. I said, you know what? I said, what you do? I said, this whole metaverse thing with Facebook. I said that's like almost like the next thing is how do you be like in this world where you both are immersed in that. So I don't know how we can do metaverse drum drinking, unless there's some type of way that you can digitally try the rum. Is there a way we need to work on that? Is this like do we got to call Keanu Reeves in the Matrix, and Neo? Take the red pill, or take the red pill if you like this blend, and take the
just as you said that, I just had this vision of having to do a virtual metaverse rum tasting, and it was just really depressing. Sounds awful, but we're going to see that in our lifetimes, aren't we?
You aren't necessarily drinking alone, right? You're drinking you're drinking with friends. Well, kind of like the Zoom happy hours, right? Anyways, but
yeah, someone's going to try it. We might as well give it a go. Maybe.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw you again. I try to do my homework here. I'm gonna throw you for this one. See if you remember the reference. So again, this was you were on a shout out to John and Will of the Rumcast, and in the episode that Mitch was on. Mitch talked about they were going to start another rum label or offering called Atomic Rum. What's the status on Atomic Rum?
Atomic Rum?
Yes, it's been a while. It's been like it's like 10 months ago, I guess 10 months ago when you did that episode, I think. So, all right, so
well. I'm like, what the hell's Atomic Rum? What was
no? You guys were talking about some type. I think it was in reference to the British Navy, stopping the Daily Tot, and it was a nuclear sub at the bottom of the ocean, and then they had all the rum barrels that are at the bottom of the ocean, and then you guys had kind of went off crazy there about submarine rum and the top.
There we go. Yeah. For our next rum brand, right? Why not just do the complete opposite of everything that Black Tot stands for and be like, just make it all marketing bullshit, just like casks at the bottom of the sea, nuclear sub infused. Yeah, why not?
No, but I just was trying to throw a reference in there. But it's funny. It's funny that you said that about the marketing. And maybe this is kind of I'm sure folks would probably disagree with me. As a consumer, and that if I didn't know anything, if I was not a person that was in the rum world, I guess you want to call it, and if I walked down the rum aisle, of course, as we know, you can't always judge a book by its cover, but the book is always going to get you to pique an interest enough. And I know it's a challenge between being, again, it's ultimately what's the juice. What the juice is in the bottle, so you can be all gimmicky and so forth. But there's times, and there's certain things that do catch your eye. It's like, oh, okay, I do like that presentation without. So it can be sight unseen. But I mean, I agree. There's some things that are a little bit gimmicky to kind of sell a product, but that's done everywhere too.
Yeah, I think marketing and the visuals and all of this kind of stuff. There's a dark art to it, you know what I mean? And there's obviously companies that do it incredibly well and seem to out of nowhere just appear. And some of the biggest rum brands, or certainly some of the biggest spiced rum brands, you know, come out, and you're like, where did this come from? You know, suddenly it's just everywhere, and someone's pumping millions of dollars into these advertising campaigns, and you're seeing it everywhere. So no, I mean, like, obviously there's an element to it which works, and it works very well for them. I think what we're starting to see, and hopefully where the future of great rums is going, is, you know, you can still have a bottle that looks great, you can still have a brand that looks great, and have great liquid. Like, it doesn't have to be, you know, I think for a long time it was, you know, the better looking the brand, probably the worse the liquid was inside. You know, it's like, where did they spend their money? Did they spend it on the liquid, or did they spend it on the bottle? It's like, I think they've probably spent it all on the bottle. There's probably not very good stuff inside.
Right.
Now I think it's leveling out a little bit, and yeah, you know, it's it really depends. But yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. But really, for me, it's always looking for clues. You know, when you pick up a bottle, even if you've never seen it before, does it tell you where it comes from? Does it tell you any information about that liquid? You know, if it just says Caribbean, you're like, well, there's 700 islands in the Caribbean. Which one? You know, tell me where this is coming from. You know, there's got to be some basic information on there, and the more information there is, the more you can trust that distillate. You know, and it's funny, it's not always, you know, some brands that we know very well today, in their infancy and when they began, were, you know, very different beasts, you know, and very different liquid inside. And, you know, over time they might get cheapened, or some things get subbed out and stuff. But I remember I was at a rum fest once a few years back, and this guy we were talking about Jamaican rum, and he's like, I've got a rum that I think you'd love to try, but you please don't prejudge it before you taste it. And I was like, okay, you know, thinking, you know, I don't prejudge things. I'll take it on its merit. And he pulls out a bottle of Captain Morgan. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, no, this is not what you think it is. And he said, this is a 1970s bottle of Captain Morgan that was released in Germany. I think it was about 60% ABV, 60 or 70% ABV. And he turned around on the back, and it had a map of Jamaica, and it had little X's where the distilleries were. And it said, this comes from the Long Pond Distillery. It's 100% pot still rum. Had all of this information on the back. And I was like, I had no idea that this was the origin of this brand. You know, it was this, and we tried it, and it was one of the best rums I'd had that whole rum fest. You know, I was like, because it was 100% Long Pond rum, and it was delicious. You know, it was really, really good. And I was like, you know, and it's just interesting how sometimes these brands evolve, or we might try a certain expression that comes from a country, and we instantly dismiss that country because we didn't like that expression. Right. And then you actually visit the distillery, and you see what they've got, and you see what they actually make, and you're like, oh, actually, you make incredible rum. You know, it's, you know, the world of rum is fascinating. This is the thing that's so important to remember sometimes, and the rum world gets very divided and very, you know, it has its favorites, and you can get very picky with some things. But when you actually visit all of these distilleries, there's not a distillery in the world that can't make incredible rum. You know,
right?
Every distillery has the technology, every distillery has the know-how. There's people out there that make amazing stuff, but sometimes, you know, the brand gets in the way of what the distillery actually wants to make or can make, and they're like, you know, we can make this incredible stuff, and the brand's like, no, we just want the cheap 30 pound column still, 96% ABV, watered down. And that becomes your impression of that country or that island, and you go, oh, they must all make really crappy rum there. And then you actually try what they can make. It's like, oh no, they can. Yeah. Everyone can make incredible stuff. You might not like what the final brand is, because someone somewhere along the way went, you know what, we can sell a lot more if we put some sugar in it and water it down, and maybe add some spices to it. But you know, you've got to always go to the source. You've got to see what these places are making. You know.
And in the stuff that goes into y'all's blends are from, as I mentioned earlier, was the different islands, and but you also mentioned something interesting was um, I- that about Australian rum was some of the original or part added in there into that consignment. And it's like I to plug one of our past guests here. I don't know if you've seen. I know it's gonna be a little hard here. 1 second here. Let me change the view here. There you go.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've seen this book here. But yeah. So Matt Murphy had done a little research in going into Australia, and he's Australian. So
Yeah.
and talked a lot about how if it wasn't for rum, who knows if we would even had Australia, right? And then you've right because you mentioned that you were doing brand ambassadoring down in that area there. So yeah, it's interesting, yeah, to try the different products around the world. So Mitch, you recently just attended the UK Rum Fest. How was that?
Yes. Oh, it was incredible. It's like rum Christmas, It's just so
Rum
good
rum
seeing everyone.
rum miss. I call my 25 days of I do a 25 days of rum miss, and it's I open up. It's my version, my poor man's version of the advent calendar because it's almost impossible to get a rum advent calendar here in the States.
All
And
right. Yeah. Okay.
so my wife goes and tries to find different small little mini bottles, and then it's like the show they had. I don't know if you're familiar with uh, Kiefer Sutherland was on a show called 24.
Yes.
And so every day, and I did this in 2020 when I was first starting out, and to do something a little different. And again, lockdown, we'll call it lockdown crazies. And every night there was another video that I would make revealing whatever today's rum was. And then it was like, okay, now I had 24 hours to come up with some type of idea to make with that rum. And so it was like for 25 days straight, I was making short little videos of the reveal and then the cocktail and then the so where the hell was I going? Oh, rum miss. And I said, yeah, the 25 days of rum miss. Sorry. I was going off on a tangent. I forgot how to get back. But yeah, 25 days of rum miss. There you go. So, oh my God. Yeah. So the UK Rum Fest. So now that's how many day fest is that?
So it's 3 days, 2 days open to the public, and then 1 day just for the trade. And yeah, all put together by Ian Burrell, Global Rum Investor, and Emma Pinero, who helps him behind the scenes and makes sure everything happens the way it should. And yeah, it's a fantastic festival. I think the first proper rum festival, certainly in the UK, if not one of the first in the world. And it's just amazing seeing the community get back together, especially after the last couple of years of COVID and having everyone not be able to do that, and there was a rum fest last year, but it was a much quieter, not as many people were coming out, and this year it was like, okay, we're back in business, it's really was the busiest I've ever seen it, so and it's fantastic, we're starting to see more and more of these rum festivals coming up and better quality rum festivals as well, and people really starting to be just holding the whole rum industry to a higher standard,
Right.
And having better quality rums and better quality brands on show and all this kind of stuff, which is really exciting. So and there's now a few in the UK. You've got the Rum Fest UK in London is the main one that Ian holds. There's a Manchester Rum Fest now that Dave Marsland does, and a Leeds Rum Fest, and Dawn Davies now is doing a rum show as well in July. So there's all these opportunities now for people around the country to get together. And if your country doesn't have a rum fest, then it needs it. But I know America obviously does very well with having quite a few. So
Did you come this year to the Miami Rum Fest? Or Rum
I
Congress?
haven't.
Or no,
I've never been to Miami. I've never been to. I need to, but that's my 2023 goal. I'm
okay,
hoping.
well, we've got some folks. We got
so.
some folks here in the chat. So Nia from My Rum Diaries. Like I said, we all live here in South Florida, but I'm sure she would have no problem being your tour guide and whatever you need. If you want to go traveling around Miami, we did actually. the Florida Rum Society, you probably heard that we kind of threw something together there earlier this year when they shifted the dates for the Rum Congress, and so the Florida Rum Society kind of they pulled some things together, and so I don't know, maybe it's something you can kind of attend, since you've a lot of folks here in the FRS that enjoys it, so they're.
Absolutely. Well, big shout out to Florida Rum Society.
Oh, look at that. The flag. Nice. Nice. I think mine's is up there. I'm up above the drum there. So here, let me see. I'm probably going to be dangerous. I'm going to screw the things up. There it is. There you go. There it is.
Yeah, the guys are great. And it's really, this one things around the world, wherever you're tuning in from, if you don't have a local rum society, like start one up, get one going, because there's probably other people that feel like you. A lot of these start very small, but they end up becoming, the most passionate group of rum lovers. And it's just such a great way to, get people together, get more interesting rums to your area as well, because, especially once you have 20, 30, 40, 50 people there, it's easier for a brand to go, right, okay, we're going to send a few cases of rum somewhere of something really special, because it's exciting,
Right.
And I know the Florida Rum Society has been big exponents of that and making sure good rums getting to Florida, and we're getting more over there. So it's
All right.
it's really
Well,
cool
hey,
to see.
just in time for some of the that new stuff that's going to come out here. So
Yes, absolutely.
just
That
in
could be
time.
good.
That's right. That's right. Breaking news. If you're just joining us, we had breaking news there that the next release here for Black Tot will be dropping in February 2023. So the 2022 is scheduled to arrive in the U.S. in February 2023. So so cool. So all right. So I think as we're starting to kind of wind some things down here. I know we were talking before the show there. We asked about music, and I think I asked you is being a rum ambassador as much as craziness or similarities as being a tour manager. And do you miss being a tour manager, right?
Yeah, aspects of it. Yeah. So before, well, I guess that's how I actually started in the bar industry. I was tour manager for a friend of mine who's a singer-songwriter, and we were opening up gigs for people. So we did a few tours with some really cool, like if you're into indie music and stuff, we toured with like Adam Green and Binky Shapiro and Father John Misty and Ryan Adams and a few others, and it was like we were the opening act, so it was there wasn't huge amounts of money in that, and so I started bartending on the side because I realized it was a job I could do anywhere in the world, no matter where we were touring. If we were going to be somewhere for a few months, I could pick up some shifts. So, but yeah, I kind of always wanted to be a writer. Actually, that was sort of what got me excited about traveling the world and writing about it and seeing all these things. And I realized, okay, well, if I'm going to be a writer, I need good stories. So what's some interesting things I could do? And I kind of always started just picking jobs that I thought were interesting, or you'd meet interesting people. And obviously the music industry is full of pretty crazy characters and pretty interesting folk out there. And then and it's a great way to see the world and
Right.
See all these things, and the bar industry too. There's so many opportunities now to travel the world and work in all these different places, and it's at the end of the day, everyone wants to come to the bar and let loose afterwards, whether you're in the music industry or in the bar industry. So
Right.
I'd always just try and be at that bar, and that's where all the fun would be happening.
Well, I mean, as you know, right, and we'll talk real quick, because again we're talking about it, but I know the way you explained it on the virtual tasting that night was you worked at the Trailer Happiness. Is that I said it right? Is that right? Trailer Happiness.
Trailer Happiness in London, yeah, Notting Hill.
Okay. So and how kind of that seemed to be like a kind of crazy bar, and you talked about that the copper roof and lighting shit on fire, and it seemed like it's something that
right, nephew.
Yeah.
Breathing out fireballs across the roof. Yeah.
So So you definitely, I'm sure, is it a type of bar that somebody's coming down and they're sitting there and they're sitting there on the stool and telling their story. So, or is it was it a lot of movement and, uh,
Trailer's this incredible place because I think it can be all things, you know. It can be on some nights, it can be the absolute dance hall party and everyone's just up and dancing and moving and you know, there's no space or time to talk about anything. You're just having a good time drinking and dancing. Other nights, you know, yeah, there's like the little den area or you can pull up a seat at the bar and you might be geeking out about rum with someone, or you might have, you know, there might be some actor in or someone in, and you're just like, it's such a melting pot of different cultures and different people from different walks of life there. And it's, just fascinating. It's a fascinating place to work and obviously an amazing place to go and drink and hang out. But, for me, if you're coming to London and if you're into rum, like Trailer has to be one of your must sees. You know, you've got to check it out.
Okay, so. Cool. So so Neil said rum has now overtaken the gin market in the UK. Yeah, it's interesting because I had interviewed my dad last year for Father's Day, and we sat down, and again, I guess as I mentioned, you know, he was born in Scotland.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about that. It was how rum was big, when, as far back when he was there, and can recall that, rum was there before, in Scotland then even Scotch, and I think you kind of mentioned that some of that in the Rumcast was talking about, whiskey and that world hadn't kind of really started kind of moving what it is today. But rum had always been there. And again, it's interesting, the history, the goods and bads of the history of the rum, from the Caribbean, the ties, the British, Navy, the Empire, et cetera, et cetera. And so yeah, it doesn't surprise, but it does kind of throw a few people off if they don't realize like, rum and and I think that's exactly how I approached that podcast last year with Jamie was I said rum in Scotland. And again, it kind of piqued my interest. It was like, that sounds bizarre, because it just doesn't. And again, like you mentioned, that island, I don't like that island because of this and this. And so some of those preconceived notions and so forth.
And a lot of the big independent bottlers in the whiskey world and in Scotland, some of them were rum first and foremost, and the whiskey sort of took off later on, and now that's what they're known for. But there's some pretty big examples of people that were rum first and whiskey caught up later on. So no, it's like all these things, trends come and go, popularity waxes and wanes, and rum was in America, rum was one of its first currencies, and
right.
George Washington supposedly won the first presidency with bribing people with rum and all this kind of stuff, and it was very highly regarded as this very exotic, out there drink that you had to travel half the world to find and bring back. So, and then rum sort of had its decline, and now it's on its way back up again. And for me, it always comes down to it really comes down to two things. It's really all availability. When you go into a bar or when you go into your local liquor store or wherever it is, you look at the range of whiskey and you look at the range of rum, and I walk into a lot of shops and I'm like, I probably wouldn't drink any of that rum,
right.
Or the same in some bars, and then, but you look at the whiskey selection, you're like, well, it'd be very easy to be a whiskey lover here because there's, 200 different things for me to try. When we start to see that happen more in rum and people have better selections available and better stuff on their back bar, suddenly like their rum sales go up and they're like, okay, interesting, and it's like, but so often it's so funny, whether it's a bar or a bottle store, sometimes I'll speak to people, I'll be like, how does your rum go here? And they're like, oh, no one likes rum here. And I look at the rum and I'm like, I can see why, um, you know, and then suddenly they start getting better bottles in, and it's like, rum sales went up. Who knew?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so, try having just like 5 really crappy bottles of whiskey and seeing how your whiskey sales do. Probably not too well.
Yeah,
It's,
right. So, all right. So here's the part of the said as we wrap things up, Mitch, is that you're going to go through the pain and suffering of the rapid fire here in the segment called "In 4 Sips or Less."
Okay. Oh, look at the video. I love it. Is that vodka?
Come on, man. I don't know what I don't know. Man, it's the first person that's asked that. It's like,
what's he for?
Yeah,
it didn't look like Ray Ray.
Look. If you can go ahead and shoot that same video with some Black Tot, I'll put it in the video there, and I'll put the give the little credit there, and it's a little promotion there, right? I don't know. It was like stock footage on Canva, so come on. It looked cool. Oh my God! Give me shit. Come on, man. All right. So here's in 4 sips or less. Again, these are the first couple of questions, things that may come to your mind. Don't overthink them and so forth. And first one up is I ask all the rum guests. Okay, in 4 sips or less, neat or on ice?
Neat.
All right. Okay. And that's how I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it today. So
yeah.
The daiquiri. Yeah, you said that's what your favorite cocktail, and it's amazing how and I don't know. I mean, that fine line between trying to kind of educate or trying to kind of expand people's minds. Especially here in Florida, a lot of folks and a lot of the bars that are not, like we said, actual cocktail or tiki bars. Getting a daiquiri is very difficult, and it kind of throws people. And I've posted a couple of social things on social media about that. It's like, oh, our blender's broken. We asked for a daiquiri, or we don't have a blender. It's like, no, right there, stop. That's when don't. It's already too late. And again, I get it.
Yeah, don't order. Don't order.
And again,
you have a beer instead. It's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's the part where it's, well, is it because of the bar? Is it because of the person, the people that they hire? They're slinging beer and mostly, right, and shots and other things. And again, stupid me, I went to a place that was more of a wine place, but they had a full bar. And of course, I was on my daiquiri kick at the time, and of course, I wanted to try it out and see, let's see how this goes. All right, can I have a daiquiri? Well, what? The waitress is like, what is? And I had to explain it, and then I was like, whenever I got back, I'm like, no, sorry, you're in a pretty good restaurant that is, I know it's a wine restaurant, and that's probably bad on me, right? But again, it's back to the your skill and your craft, right? Bartending is a craft, and anyway, so needless to say, that daiquiri was terrible. But when I've explained it to some few folks, I'm like, look, all it is you get some rum, you get some lime juice, and then you get some simple syrup. That's it. They're like, that's all that makes in a daiquiri? Because again, they're used to going through all the commotion of mixing it and blending. And I'm like, yeah, because every bartender, right? Am I right? Every bartender hates making a frozen drink.
I don't.
No? Okay.
But then, I've come from trailer stock, so it's part of our DNA. It's a weird thing, but I mean, the same is true to a certain extent with every cocktail, I think, and with every spirits category. I remember being a very new bartender, very young in the game, and I was at an airport bar in Chicago, I think, and I, not knowing any better, just said, "Oh, can I have an old fashioned?" at the time, and he was like, "Sure," and this thing comes out, and it had crushed ice in it and muddled up orange and like a neon cherry, and I tasted this thing and I was like, what the hell is this? And I said, I'm really sorry, like maybe you make them differently here, but this was kind of what I had in mind for an old fashioned. And he's like, this is the proper way of how to make an old fashioned. You're probably doing it somewhere else, but this is the authentic. And I was like, oh, can I have it the non-authentic way then, please? Because I really don't need soda water in there, and but you get a feel over time, and you walk into some places and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to order a cocktail here. I'm not even going to chance it. I'm not going to try it. And it's not really their fault. It's not really their fault, like people have the majority of bartenders and the majority of people we do are dealing with, high volume, popping beers, making vodka sodas, spirit mixer drinks. Like that is 90% of the bartenders in the world, like, and then there's this little niche, but it's the niche that we tend to hang out in, which is like real craft cocktails and using high quality booze and fresh juicing and all this kind of stuff. And then there's a little bit in the middle of the two, and there's this little crossover period where, and it really depends who's taught them, who got there first, what book they happen to pick up, because we think there's misinformation in rum. Geez, the cocktail world is rife with just random stories, because half these stories that people tell, and they're like, oh no, this is the story behind this drink, or this is the story that, like, yeah, you heard that when you were like 10 daiquiris deep at a bar at 3 a.m. and now you're telling me this is the absolute truth history of this guy. Like, it's bullshit, the guy who told you didn't know either. Like, he's heard it 3 times passed on from someone else who was wasted.
Mitch, I'm laughing because that sounds like me. Oh,
there's so many stories in the bar industry, and we pass it on as the truth, and it's like, what's your sources?
Yeah.
Wait
a minute. Yeah. No.
And the trouble is, a lot of bartending is like that too. A lot of bartending is, it's one of the last, not one of the last maybe, but it's one of the art forms which I think more often than not is shown and passed down to people. It's like having an apprentice. You're passing on this skill. They watch you do it, and depending on how good their mentor was, determines how good a bartender they're going to be going out. And very few people are lucky enough to have these great mentors. We might happen to work with more of them, and so we become a bit more judgmental sometimes. But yeah, you get a feel. You walk into a place, you see what booze is on the back bar, you look at their ice that they're pouring, you look at how they measure a drink or put stuff out, and you're like, I trust you, or I don't trust you at all, So yeah.
Hey, there's another movie idea there. It's a rum horror film, right? You walking into different bars and restaurants. So I'm gonna confess, and don't hold, don't now like end this podcast because of this. So, and it wasn't rum abuse, but again, it's same thing. I did a little bartending in my early 20s, and again, I didn't have any training. It was one of those, I worked at a place and you throw you behind a bar, and of course back before the internet, we had the books, right? You flip through, and it took forever, and now you can just ask Siri for stuff. And I had the older couple come up, and this trips everybody up here is the difference between soda and Coca-Cola soft drinks, right? So somebody asked for like I don't remember now what it was, maybe something in soda, and here I squirt the gun, and and they're like, "What is this?" Like, well, that's what I call soda, the aka Coca-Cola, and right, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's a mistake, and so yeah, we all have many of those stories when you were starting out and so forth. But oh my god, all right,
absolutely.
all right. So you ready for number 2?
Yes.
Okay, so I
love that this is the quick fire round as well. It's like we only spent 20 minutes on that one.
But no, this is remember, you just said it. This is like the 10 daiquiri deep conversation, right? All right. So according, so again, from my research team, aka me, you have a background in karate. Okay,
yes.
so here we go. Question number 2 in 4 sips or less. So Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris?
It's got to be Bruce. It's got to be Bruce for that one.
Yeah, you didn't think coming into this podcast like, nobody's ever going to ask me about karate and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, I was my first job, if you like, out of school was I was a karate instructor and ended up doing that for 9 years. So I was coaching the UK team for a little while, doing doing a lot of competitions and stuff like that, and
Cool.
I had a very, very healthy lifestyle, perhaps a lot more so than today. It was very, very wonderful and rewarding job.
So you are like the double force here. You not only are the bartender, but you're the bouncer too.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's always nice to let someone else handle that side,
Right.
but yeah.
All right. So, that's funny. Is that the next question here? We already kind of preluded into this. All right. So, in 4 sips or less, question number 3: what's your least favorite cocktail to make? Apparently, we now know it's not the daiquiri or the frozen daiquiri or the blended drinks, because you already said that you didn't mind doing it. But
Yeah, I don't know if I have a least favorite one. I know a lot of people have drinks they love to hate. Like a lot of people complain about making espresso martinis or mojitos and stuff. But I don't know. I've always had this thing of like, if someone orders a drink off you, if someone's going to pay an hour's wage or a couple of hours wage on a fancy cocktail somewhere,
Right.
like you make it. I mean, your goal is to make it the best you've ever made it and make
Right.
it even better than the last one you have. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I have there's ones that are definitely like, they take a long time. Or they, like, if you're making like a clarified milk punch and it takes you 3 to 5 days to put this thing together and it's like a real ball ache, but it's so delicious at the end of it that it's
Right.
kind of really worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like somebody walks into a bar and they ask for, what's the one that you make with the egg white and
like a sour or a flip. If
yeah. I guess
a Ramos gin fizz. Yeah, Ramos is another one people love to hate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There is this weird, again, like there's a dark art in bartending, and there is this sort of well-known piece that happens when, if you send out certain drinks into the wild, and say they're not on your menu, but someone orders one, and so you make one because you want to give your guest everything you can. And there are drinks like the espresso martini where the second you send one out, it's like everyone registers it and goes, we'll have 50 of those, please. And you're like, holy shit, and like
what did I just do?
Like that much coffee, or you don't even have a coffee machine there, and you're like, can someone go out and it's 11 o'clock at night, can someone go and find a cafe that's open and order like 3 liters of espresso? So there's definitely there's ones where you go, I could be making a lot more work for myself in the future.
Sorry, we don't have any coffee.
Yeah, that's it. But no, when you can do it, it's that's part of the joy. I think that's someone was asking me the other day, do I miss the bartending side? And I do. I miss the service part. I miss the looking after guests part. I miss the making drinks part and the being creative part. That's really fun. And one of the nice things is now, sometimes I'll do a tour and someone asks me to do a guest shift, which in the brand ambassador terms usually means I make drinks for like an hour or 2, and I don't have to do any cleaning down after the shift. And it's just like, you come onto the bar and you have a great time and then you walk away, and it's wonderful. So I'm very lucky in that regard. I think that's one of the, the things you don't see at the bar, the hours of prep before a shift, the cleaning down 2 hours after everyone's gone home. Like, that's where, bartenders deserve all your love and all your tips and everything possible, because, the work you don't see is the really hard stuff, and
it's not all Tom Cruise and cocktails and dreams, right?
It's mostly that, but it's like there's a little bit of work as well.
All right, so in 4 sips or less, question number 4: what's the rum industry going to look like in 5 years?
Wow, this is a quick fire question.
Yeah,
This
it
is
should.
just
Yeah. You should have. Yeah, it should be on. It should always be on the top of your mind, right? What's your 5-year plan?
yeah. What's the rum industry in 5 years'
Yeah.
time? I think it will expand in all the ways we want it to,
Mhm.
and in all the ways we don't want it to. And uh, you mentioned it before, like rum has started to overtake gin sales, and rum in the UK just overtook whiskey sales for the first time. And you're like, okay, but what rum is the key question? You know, does that include your spiced rums? Does that
Right.
include flavored rums? Does that include rums that don't even say rum on the label because technically they don't qualify as rums? You know, there's always a danger when a category gets super popular. There's the people who want to put really great stuff in a bottle and make the best stuff possible, but that's limited. You know, there's only so much of that out there that's really amazing juice and that the distilleries are willing to sell and that you can get a hold of. And there's to a certain extent there is a limit on how much of that we can all have and enjoy. On the other hand, you have a load of companies who go, we can make a quick buck off rum now because everyone's buying rum, and they put out, you know, some new spice thing or flavored thing or strawberry rum or candy floss rum or whatever it is, but which is we haven't seen yet. Hopefully, don't let me give anyone ideas. We don't want that. But
And if it does
that's
happen, don't blame Mitch for it.
yeah, I mean, but that's what happened to gin, right? Like gin suddenly hit this point where it's like kind of out of nowhere. I mean, we pushed for it. I remember us being on the bar pushing people who were all ordering vodka because vodka was the thing, being like, why don't you have gin? It's like vodka, but with flavor, you know, it's much better. And at some point we won that argument, and everyone just started ordering gin, and all these other types of amazing craft gins were coming out, and really high-end stuff started coming out that was like, wow, look at all this cool gin. And then suddenly it was like, what's happening over here? What's all this gin happening? Like, why is there pink gin? Why is there this gin? You know, all this stuff going on. And yeah, so you can sometimes be a victim of your own success. Do you know what I mean? So right. I think, you know, and you know, we have obviously a very passionate crew of rum purists and rum aficionados and rum fans out there. And the thing I try to always tell everyone is, like, don't ever slate that guy who's just joined your rum forum and is put up his bottle of super sweet spiced rum, whatever it is. If he's drinking rum or if she's drinking rum, fantastic. As long as they're in the rum camp,
right,
we can always get them to drink a better rum. That bit's easy. If they're a whiskey drinker, if they're a gin drinker or a vodka drinker, much harder to convince them to try any rum. You know, like, we've got to get them over a whole category. But if they're in rum, or they think they're drinking rum or something with rum, at some point there's some kind of rum flavoring in there. Okay, now I can show you all these other rums and we can find you a better one. So, you know, yes, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, but overall, I think it's a really good thing because, you know, yes, there might be more crappy rums that will come with that, but at the same time, we'll get so much more access to bigger rums. Bottle stores will be taking more of a chance on some of these independent bottlings and some of this cool stuff because they like the rum. They hear rum is growing, so they go, let's give a couple more shelves to the rum. You know, bars will start stocking more rum because they'll go, you know, rum is on the up. Let's have some more rums available. And the better piece we do around education and encouraging people to drink better rums, then we'll see more of the rums that we like and less of the ones we don't. So
okay, all right. So that was a quick rapid fire answer. No, just kidding. I know, it's like
just looking in my crystal ball. You know,
there you
like,
go. No, yeah, no. So,
what's
all right.
out?
So for going through that painting suffering, which I appreciate. So we do have actually something here. So we're gonna send you a Drums and Rum shirt. There's our
amazing.
Yeah, there you go. There's that. We call it the. It's hard to say there, but we call it. Which, how do I get that? Where the backbeats meets the spirits.
Meet the spirits.
So yeah. So yeah, a little bit of fun there, and this is the shirt that we only give it. You know, I only give away out to the actual guest. So if you see somebody wearing this shirt, Again, I'm not quite sure if Ian's gotten his shirt, but again, if you see somebody in the UK, they're wearing a shirt, or wherever your travels are, definitely like Matt. Matt was on; he got his shirt. The
Yes,
cocktail
amazing.
wonk, and a couple of few here in the chat here. Nia from my Rum Diaries. She's a guest as well too. Okay, so she did answer Mitch. She says about coming to Miami. She says yes. Whatever Mitch needs, we are here. So there you go. I think Nia is offering up like Airbnb at her house. I think for exchange for maybe a bottle or two, maybe. So, but she did have a question. So, did Mitch say clarified rum punch as a cocktail? Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, clarified milk punch. Obviously, with rum, it's going to taste better. But yeah, clarified milk punches, I think, are, if you have the time and energy to make one, or if you know a bar that has some on hand, they can be one of the most delicious drinks. They're just texturally fantastic. Once you make a big batch of it, and it will last for months and months in the fridge. It's it's one of the things I love to do. We've got a fridge with like a little it's got like a little water reservoir in the door of the fridge, and you have like a little tap on the front that you can do in. So it's not plugged into the mains water. It's just like you fill up this little tank. And so I will, when I have time at home to actually do it, I'll make a batch of clarified milk punch, put it in this little water reservoir. So then when, you come around or you have a dinner party or something, people can just go up to the fridge and you just fill up your clarified milk punch.
Look at you.
That's a home bartending tip that, but you need about 3 to 5 days to make it, and a lot of patience, 'cause it's definitely a pain. But yeah, clarified milk punches, if you haven't tried one before, look it up. It's a beautiful style of cocktail and gives you this beautiful texture. So
very cool. Yeah. All right. All right. So Mitch, here you go. Here's your shameless plugs and, what you want people to check out and do, buy, all that stuff. So here you go. Here's your shameless plug portion.
Shameless plug. Okay. Well, I've got 2 shameless plugs then, I guess.
Go for
it. And actually, I'm not going to make either of them about me, because I think, hopefully everyone who's listening is already into Black Tot and enjoying all of that good stuff. So yes, obviously keep drinking that. But two things. Matt Petrak from Cocktail Wonk has just put out pre-orders for his new book, Modern Caribbean Rum, which is an 850-page odyssey of rum. And I think I've seen the preview copy at UK Rum Fest. I think it's going to be one of the most important rum books in the category. So go and pre-order that if you haven't already. Shipping's a lot cheaper in the States, so you guys should definitely do that. My other plug is for a dear friend of mine who actually works with our American importers with Impex Beverages over there. And his name's Joshua Hatton, and he sent me this wonderful album, because I thought today was going to be a lot more about music, so I had some albums prepared, but he sent me this wonderful album from his band called Kimono Dragon.
Okay.
And it's called Kimono Gold. It is some of the weirdest, craziest music I've ever listened to, but I love this man very much, and so I think it's only appropriate we do some kind of music plug on here.
All right. No,
but
this is
if you're into like crazy prog rock and just super out there stuff, like go and check them out. They're
all right.
It's a genre of music I never knew existed, but yeah, I'm I'm glad to have it and Joshua Haddon in my life. So
excellent. All right, no, check it out. So that's Kimono. Let me put that in the chat there. So check out. So yeah,
Kimono Dragon. Yeah, I think they've got a few albums now, but this is the one he sent me a little vinyl for. I inherited my dad's vinyl player and been building up my record collection. So he sent me this to enjoy, and enjoy I do.
All right, cocktail. I'll put a plug in there for Matt. Cocktail Wonk's latest book. Okay. All right. Well, there. All right. Well, there. Thank you. There. So. All right, there's a little bit. There you go. A little bit of applause there for everybody. So there you go. All right. So Neil said he's got to run. Don't you mean got to rum? He said, thanks, Mitch. All right. All right, so Nia from My Rum Diary said just ordered that book from Matt. So excellent. All right, so there we go. So yes, so that's definitely a book. I know I saw the big launch of that the other day. I still was in the works. It actually, he hinted at something on the podcast, and he didn't divulge. But we did talk about the the other book he had out previous to that. So we may have to try to get him to come on the happy hour, maybe do some cocktails with him and do something like that. But yeah, super. That was a super great conversation with Matt. So yeah, so I'll definitely check out. Come on, I like prog rock. So I know. So hopefully I didn't get you burst your bubble that you were ready to talk all music and find out that it wasn't.
I just presumed. I was just like, all right, okay, I better get all my music classes ready. I was like, oh, okay,
yeah, right. So, all right, so definitely follow Mitch, follow Black Tot on social media. I know they've got a very active social media, especially on Instagram. Check out Black Tot, the website there. Again, I think that website is it. There's a lot to it, and I mean that in a good way. That there's a lot of things you can learn. I love the breakdowns of the different the flavor and the notes and the tastes and the different rums that are put into the blends. A lot of great links to other, again, it's not just about, Black Tot and that's it. I know that's cool that you guys reference, Matt stuff, other podcasts and other links to stories and interesting. So definitely check out the website. I think, you'll definitely get a kick out if you really want to go down the rabbit hole and get off of TikTok and, the TikTok black hole. And come over to Black Tot's website and check that out and read all their content. So forth. So I'd like to thank Mitch for coming on the podcast and talking about rum, talking about Black Tot. I love, again, the history of all this. Check out our podcast, Drums and Rums, over on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts at, and look for other great episodes out there as well. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube page here, please. Before you drop off, go ahead and hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Definitely we're trying to get up there to that 1,000 mark, like everyone wants to, quit their day jobs and, become a YouTube star. And and also
it's the life goal, right?
Like, I know, right? Yeah. And our website, drumsandrums.com. So I want to thank you all for tuning in here. Have a great day. This is Paul with the Backbeats Meets Spirits. Thanks all.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, I think we're stopped. We're stopped streaming there. Okay, so it's just us now. So hanging out here. So,
All right.
So which one do you see? So you see. Okay, let me switch back. I'll close this. Yep. All right, 1 second. Works. All right, there we go. All right. Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure I kill all the streams for whatever goes out to the interwebs. And I try
to still watching like, yeah, now
let's get down to the real stuff now. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, my day job is I work for a utility company, and I tried to keep the two apart. Just so there's no, obviously there's no conflict of interest of like I'm doing the same thing that my day job is, but it's just one of those like, yes, I do, because it has thrown people where, Jim Riley, I went to a drum workshop for Jim Riley, and he's the drummer from Rascal Flatts, right? So you've heard of Rascal Flatts, and
Rascal Flatts.
They're like one of the biggest country bands.
Cool.
So he's been their drummer for 20 years, and I went up there for his workshop. But when I was signing up for it, my name comes up different because on social media, I go by my middle name on my last name, right?
Okay, yeah.
So he goes, well, wait a minute. So I think it was throwing him off like I had something to hide, and it was like one of those like, look, I'm not a rock star musician that I put my whole self out there. I said, I do have a day job that I don't want to people, because again, I don't want people looking at my shit up, right? And find out this, and this, and so forth. But anyway, so so I work for a utility company here in Florida, and
Okay.
and it's a pretty.
I totally thought you were going to be like a secret agent or something. So
I'm the rum agent. We go undercover to find out what people are hiding about their rum. Oh my God, that just wrote itself there. All right, that's gonna be a whole shtick, right? Video or some sort of. There's so much content coming from this episode. No, so over the last month, it was a little. My job kind of took a little bit more precedent on because of the hurricane that hit here in Florida last month, I guess. So.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, were you hit hard by that, or was that just more from a work perspective?
No, well, I live on the east coast of Florida, so we're fortunate. We really didn't have much of it. The southwest coast of Florida, that one area that they show all the time, the bridge is broken and all that. Yeah, I mean, there's unfortunately Fort Myers Beach is what took the brunt of the storm, and it's unfortunate because a lot of that Fort Myers Beach area is like what we would consider old Florida, right? It's like mom and pops. It's like, this little store, this little pizza place, or this whatever the case may be, the motels that is like just right off the beach, right off the water of the Gulf of Mexico. So the unfortunate part is this stuff has all been just totally blown out. And what's going to probably happen is just give me my insurance check. See you later. I don't want to rebuild. I don't want to start over. And big development will come in, and it's going to be a totally different vibe and feel, So, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It was no joke. I know over 100 people died, and a lot of that was just from the water. It wasn't even from the wind or anything like that. It was
Really?
they just didn't leave their house, and the storm surge was like, 16 to 18 feet. So it's almost taller than your house.
And there was calls for evacuation. People just refused, or
Yeah, there was some ruffling that whether they called it too late or what. But I think sometimes that's why these storms on the west coast of Florida. There always seems to be Tampa. I don't know if you're familiar where Tampa is in relation.
Yeah.
So it's on the west coast of Florida, kind of mid part up, just right on the Gulf of Mexico. And Tampa almost seems to never get hit. And they always talk about if a storm was to hit Tampa, the storm surge what oddly happens is when a storm is coming and it has that much power, it'll suck the water out of the bay, and then it'll bring it back in. And then it will push so much inland flooding, storm surge that it'll be like So if you remember a lot of the stuff from Katrina, like 10 years ago, or in New Orleans, that was a different reason why they had that flooding. But trying to evacuate a large city, just think about that, right? Is kind of crazy, and that So I think fortunately it's good that Tampa didn't get hit because it's a major city, and but it's. Somebody's going to get it, and it's always there's a selfishness of say, better off somebody than me. But if somebody has to take it, I don't want it, But yeah, I don't know. So, but yeah, it's some crazy stuff. But we're and we even now have something that's kind of floating around out there in the next couple of days. It's not going to be as strong, but it's like, God, hurricane season isn't over yet, and that doesn't last up till the end of this month is hurricane season officially ends. So. The joys of living in Florida. I always tell people, you know what? Every so often we may have to deal with a hurricane, but you know what? When you live in the north, it's always cold.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. So Mitch, I appreciate coming on, and hopefully you had fun, and again opportunity to talk about Black Tot. And I said I it wasn't until the tasting there that. Like I said, I always thought it was, the company had been around a lot longer, and there was more aspect to it, and I'm glad I got a chance to learn more about it, and hopefully others as well too. So.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thanks for putting it all together. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a really cool setup. So,
yep.
So wish you all the luck getting the word out there and building it up. It's really cool.
You got it. And I'll follow up. I'll send you a note for an address to where you want me to send the shirt. And
thank you.
Yeah,
it's very kind.
Yeah, you got it. So, all right.
Also, I mean, I'll hopefully be over there and hoping to be there in February for Miami Rum
Congress.
Yep. So
okay, cool. So yeah,
be there as well.
I was looking.
Yeah.
No, I was looking forward to going this year, and then I know they moved the date this year, and it kind of throws some things off. And that's where a lot of us here in Florida, that time that they rescheduled it for in March, a lot of us have kids that are on spring break and had plans and trips and so forth. So when they rescheduled it, the Rum Congress to that time frame, a lot of us were like, well, we can't go now. So
yeah, because it's in February now, isn't it? 10th and 11th Feb.
Right. And that's when the FRS was like, well, a lot of us already had planned hotels and so forth, and we can't go in March. Let's do something anyway. And that's what, a lot of them pull together, kind of a couple different brands come in and do some tastings. And, so the event was good. It was fun, and got a chance to meet a lot of people in the community too.
Okay. So. Yeah, cool.
Yep. All right. Looking forward to it. So again, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Paul. All the best.
You got it. Thanks. Cheers.